Hey YouTube, in this video I'll be breaking down my 100 and 200 that I did today. Today's 15th of April. So I had a race before 2 weeks ago and now I have this race, which is 1 and 2 again. So I woke up and I felt quite good. I felt relaxed, which is the main thing, because I don't want to be stressing and panicking. I felt relaxed, which is obviously a good start off to the day. Then I ended up going to the track, came quite early, and I started warming up, and I felt like the track was slippery for one, but I wasn't able to get any glute activation, and I was a bit annoyed with that because I was like, I had an experiment. My experiment was, for the times that I ran before, my 11.68 and my 23.28, I was like, I didn't push out of the blocks with my glutes. I only started to actively use my glutes when I was close to upright. So this is probably not close to upright, but like near midway from my drive face. This is probably like 10-15 meters when I should be using it at the start. This was my theory. My theory was that as long as I push out the blocks in my glutes, I would have a lot of power. So whilst I was warming up, I was a bit annoyed. However, I kind of already knew that this was going to work. So it was a half experiment. You should really never experiment in your races. You should only do what you've been doing in training. What really made it an experiment was my arms, because when I ran the 100 and the 200, I had my arms out wide, but this time I was gonna have my arms in, which also, this also alone would have been a half experiment, because when I'm not in lanes, or even when I'm in training, I generally have my arms in. I just don't notice when I'm actually out in a race. But I put my arms in for my 1 and my 2. Before I get to that, I warmed up and I was like, okay, I feel good, kind of. I feel it was a bit weird. I didn't feel good as I could have, but I felt good. It was like, this is a decent state to be in, but it's a bit iffy. I have the 100 coming up soon, so I was like, okay, so let me just relax a bit and then we'll try again. I tried again. I warmed up properly this time, and afterwards I felt great, which is good. But my mood started to drop as we started to get closer and closer to the race. Not straight away, but once we got the names done and everything, I knew which race I was in and lane and everything. My mood started to drop. Everything was fine though, other than the fact that I still couldn't really feel my glutes, which was obviously very annoying. But I worked on trying to make sure that they were active. It's just that I wasn't able to produce as much force as I have this week training out of the blocks. Well, I didn't do it out of the blocks. I did it in a 4-point start, but it was still annoying that I couldn't produce the same amount of force when it came to my race. So I went to the 400, gun went, and I ran out. The first thing was that I actually entered the flow state, which I haven't done in a while. Because the race before, I didn't enter the flow state. The last time I entered the flow state, I think it was the last time I raced for the 200. It wasn't the 400. Not the 100, sorry. And the time before that with a short race, it was the first race I did this season, which was a 60 during my preseason. So this was quite good for me because it meant that I was actually kind of back in the state I was when I ran that 60 where I just left everyone. For that 60, I got a split of 7.22. Obviously, this isn't accurate because it's not an actual time that I tried to calculate myself, but roughly I got 7.22, and by the 60 meter, I was third, which was good because I was in the flow state up until I basically popped up where I realized, okay, I couldn't see lane 1, which was a problem because lane 1 was the person I actually needed to pay attention to, but the person directly in front of me was someone right next to me, so I was like, okay, I just need to pass you. I passed him, and then I was like, okay, I don't see lane 1. Where is he? And I looked, and I found him. This was around 80 meters. And at 80 meters, I just turned my head and just continued looking at him. And I just watched, and then near the end, I was like, okay, this is going to be a dip. Whoever dips better wins. He didn't dip. So I ended up winning that race, and I got 11.39. The only problem is, it was wind. I believe the wind was plus 2.7. Obviously, it is still quite accurate for this time in the season because the season just started essentially. So there's more time to show my worth. And I think the time, even if you was to convert it, not convert it, but if you was to fix the wind, it'd still be around 11.39, which I'm obviously quite happy for. When I did the race, I actually thought this was like the peak of my abilities for now. I wouldn't be able to go any faster, and if I do, I wouldn't get any faster than 11.3. And looking back now, I disagree, purely because obviously I have more time. So it's not like I was saying I wasn't going to go any faster than this time, but I have more time to prove that I can go faster. So there's that. But the fact that I couldn't feel my glutes when I was sprinting, and I came into the race, I was supposed to come into the race thinking, okay, you need to squeeze your glutes violently in the start and then relax afterwards, and then swing your arms with full range of motion. But it was only around 50, 60 meters where I actually started to properly use my arms. So considering, well, not properly use my arms, I was using it properly before, but actively use my arms to make sure I was getting in full range of motion, which the fact that happened so late in the race probably cost me some time. So there's a good chance I could have gotten even lower. Not, like I said though, wouldn't have been any lower than 11.3. But the fact that I could have gone even lower should show that this 100, whilst it isn't perfect, it is quite close essentially. Because I wasn't last in the 100 like I was in the other 100 I ran. I was near the front, and I just put in a bit of work and then ended up passing everyone. Because my starts are always poor, but my top end speed usually helps me. So this race really just showed me that I just need to work even more on my blocks. I need to be able to produce more force. So after that, ate a bit, then went to the 200. I actually watched the race whilst I was eating, and I started to warm up. And when I started to warm up, I realized a problem. My hips were tight. Though this might have been caused by the fact that I'd essentially already cooled down after the 100, because it was like a 2-hour break. And then straight afterwards, I just quickly went out and did a really fast sprint. Luckily though, I could feel my glutes a bit more, but I was focused on other things whilst I was warming up, and even when I got into the blocks. But I was once I realized that my hips were a bit tight, I quickly started to do work on my hips to open up a bit, did some mobility, and then we got to the race. It's very unfortunate because in all my 200s, I'm always in the outer lanes, which means that when I'm in the outer lanes, I can't really try and say, okay, I want to pass you. Because whilst there was one person on my outside, he wasn't really fast. So it was like, I could pass you, but once I passed you, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to just hold off. So what ended up happening was, since all the fast people were on my inside, I didn't know how fast I needed to really go. So I pushed out the first 100 and one person went past me, then another person was neck and neck. And the one person that went past me was my only real competition. I was like, okay, this is quite bad. But I was like, you know what, I'll let it happen, because later on in 100, I should be able to catch you. So you went for the first 100 in about 11.49 or 11.3. It was, I don't even remember what the split was. It was fast though. And then the final hundreds was where I started to push. I got off the bend. The only problem was when I was on the bend, I forgot to move my arms into the bend. So I was literally just going like this and leaning in. So I think this 200 could have been much better. And I was distracted when I was coming out of the blocks as well. I also think I was the last person to come out of the blocks. But we do races to learn this stuff, so I know not to let this happen again. But generally, I've noticed that every single time I have a 200, I'm always distracted. But I went out, started to sprint. He passed me, another person was neck and neck. When we got to the 100, the bend just disappeared, obviously. I kind of ran the bend a bit poorly because I was too distracted by the person in front of me, so I wasn't actually paying attention to the lanes to make sure I just curved inwards so I could slingshot off properly. So that was another problem. But I went down, and then I just eventually, at about 120 meters, I think, I started to separate. He was, the guy in first was already well ahead. And I was like, okay, I need to catch him. So again, another problem. It was around 140 where I was like, okay, use my arms. So I wasn't actively using my arms for the first 100, unfortunately. It was only about 140 where I actually started to properly use my arms. And in the race, you can actually see it, because I go around the first 100, and then you see the stagger where everyone roughly is. Then about 120, the person who's winning, he's already at like 130, maybe like 5 meters. And one person near the back is starting to catch me. He's the person that comes third. And right, you can literally kind of see it right when I'm like, oh, use my arms, because he's starting to catch me. Then I actually start to use my arms properly, and then the gap just stays where it is, and then I start to shorten the gap with the person who's in the front. But it's not by a lot; it's by a small amount. But I do start to shorten it, and the person who's behind, he's just stays roughly where he was. He never really gains any more of me after that. So there's a good chance I could have gone faster. And looking at that race, I would say I wouldn't have been able to go sub 23. If the race was perfect, I probably could. But I wouldn't have been, I generally think, even if I fixed a lot of the problems that I've noticed, I wouldn't have been able to go sub 23. I would have gotten close, or I would have done 23 flat, but I wouldn't have gone sub 23. But I have another race 2 weeks from now where there's an opportunity for this. During the entire meet, though, I noticed, oh yeah, I got 23.17 for 200, and the wind was plus 2.4, so it was illegal again. But I noticed during the entire meet that my knee was starting to play around, because I started to do strides and stuff, warm up, and I just felt my left knee just essentially start to just solidify. Essentially, wasn't really being pliable, which is obviously quite annoying, because if it was more pliable, I feel like I could have done more. But it just means that the injury that I got in my knee, it hasn't completely healed. So to make sure I don't injure it again, I just need to make sure that I continue to do work on my knee, which I've got an entire season to fix that. So I'm going to keep doing that and make sure it's stronger. But other than that, I've really just, from this race, I've really been able to actually see how much I've improved from the start of the season up until now. Because at the start of the season, whilst I run 24.28 and it wasn't really realistic, I still improved and been able to move a whole second legally. And unofficially, I've dropped lower than a second, and I'm still going to go. And for the 100, I've gone from 11.68 to 11.39. Again, unofficial, but I still managed to cut off, 2.28 seconds. And I still think I can go faster, which is great. And probably after this last competition for this month in April, I'm probably going to have another one, but I'm going to have another 3-month break. So I'll be back again in July and August for the final few races I'm going to have, where hopefully, bare minimum, I've gone sub 11s and sub 20. I wouldn't say sub 23, because I feel like that's going to happen anyway. I would say the goal here would be to get a time that's obviously sub 23, but it's more sub 22.4. I want a time lower than that for the 200. For the 100, we still want to try and get down to the 10.5. But looking at it realistically, there's a good chance we won't make that. But as long as I get sub 11, we know that I made enough progress this season and I can be happy.
Come on, Jack.
Yes, Jack.
Nathan.
Yes, Nathan.
Come on, Shags. Go, Shags.
Yes, Shags.
Come on, Jack. Come on, Shaquille.
Yeah, Shigs is on me. Yeah, I can't lie, yeah, that's peak.
Yes, Shaquille!
Come on,
Yes,
Jack.
Jack.
Come on.
Jack's pushing.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm telling you. He's got
that's
bare endurance. He can hold that.
Aye, second. Okay, yeah, that's not happened,
If you like my video, like the video, let me know in the comments section below. Check the description, because anything I forget to say in the video, I always put in the description. And if you like my content, subscribe. Helps the channel out a lot. I post every 2 days at 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. If you don't know when that is, just hit the bell and then you'll be notified instantly.